Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're installing a full set of airbags, light bars, light bulbs, goodies, and more on this 2023 Dodge Ram. Let's get after it. First things first, before we go too far, I need to put more wood on the wood stove out back because it is cold, it is Maine, and it's only like 46 degrees in here, so we're gonna get up to a nice comfy 60 or so. Perfect working conditions. All right, so customer of mine, we did some work on his Nissan. We installed he had a Frontier that he doesn't have anymore. We installed a bunch of accessory lights, airbags, a small lift kit. He does a lot of, like, I don't want to say overlanding, but camping out in the woods, and he wheels out there and camps in the back. Truck gets weighted down a lot, and the truck had a lot of sag to it. Now he has a 2023 Dodge Ram half-ton. Same kind of situation. It's barely level, and then when you put all his gear and stuff in the back, it squats a little bit. We haven't done the lift in it yet, and he may or may not do that, but in the meantime, he's going to get a set of airbags installed. He went ahead and procured the Rough Country airbags, and we're going to go ahead and install those today, plus a few accessories that go with those airbags that you don't always see. Along with that, he's got a light bar. He's got some auxiliary lights for the rear and some new upgraded headlight bulbs. So let me go out, I'll show you the truck. All right, there it is, guys. The 2023 Dodge Ram Warlock Classic Edition. And I like the looks of this truck a lot. I like that gray metallics with the black. I like it. I like the grill. I like everything about it. The light bar is going to go right in here, right below the Ram. It's going to fit onto there. And then the airbags, as you can see, the truck has no rake to it whatsoever, and it's not even fully loaded right now. Apologize for the sun. But we're going to be able to bring that truck up like 1.5 inches or so in the rear. It's got a manual adjust. He didn't get the pump or anything like that. But as you can see, he does a lot of camping in the back. So he fully outfits this thing for camping, which is so cool. I love this. And it's even cold weather camping. He's not afraid of the cold, so he'll get out there and get her done. So we're gonna get this thing inside and tear into it. Sorry, tractor, you gotta go outside in the cold. All right, guys, this is what you got in the kit. So this is the airbag kit. I believe it's 10032. So this is the kit that you get for the Dodge Ram Classic 4-wheel drive, or 2, I believe, that does not have a lift kit in it. So if you have a lift kit, they make spacers that go on top of this to take up that extra room depending on the lift kit you have. So you want to be sure of that, and you want to verify that. But as you can see, we got a box full of brackets, hardware, zip ties, airline, our very rugged, stout looking airbags, as well as the directions, and a cool little airline cutter, which I've never seen before, so that's neat. The customer also opted for these. This is not part of the kit right here. Let me look at the formal name of these things. I don't know what they are. Hold on, I'll get you the customer also opted for these. Not part of the kit. However, these lower airbag cushions, what they do is instead, oh, there's a picture right there. The airbag can sit into this cup, but yet if the truck articulates, you're not limited by the stretch of the airbag. In other words, like when the airbag's bolted to the lower bracket, well, that's probably the upper. When the airbag's bolted to the lower bracket, if that is what it is, it can't lift off the pad. So it's bolted there, it's bolted to the bottom, bolted to the top. It can't lift off. You're regulated, and you have no room for articulation if you're gonna do some wheeling and stuff like that. What this does is it allows your pad, so you're still bolted to the upper frame, but in the lower frame, on a full articulation type of situation, this pad's gonna lift off from that cushion and then come back down in. So you don't have to worry about being limited by your airbag. It'll also help your airbag last longer if you're into these articulated situations. So we're gonna go ahead and install those as well, and the price point is pretty cheap anyway. I've not installed a set of these, so we're gonna get to that when we get to it. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get the Dodge Ram up on the lift. You could do this in a driveway with some fairly basic hand tools. Makes it easier up on the lift, so we're gonna do that. We're gonna get the wheels off. You do take the coil spring off, and you cut the bump stop, not the bumper. You cut the bump stop right off the vehicle. You flush cut that thing, grind it down, give it a touch-up paint, because that goes away, and this is gonna go in place of where that is, where the airbag's gonna mount. So you're no longer gonna have that bump stop in there. So I'll get her up on the lift. All right, guys, now that we got these ridiculously heavy LT tires off of here, my God, we're gonna actually disconnect the lower shock bolt and take that out. think it's 21 millimeter, as well as the sway bar end link here. We're gonna disconnect that as well. Or we might just unbolt the sway bar itself right from here and just get that out of the way. I think it talks about disconnecting the end link, but at the end of the day, you could take the whole sway bar off or just let it hang out of the way. It's not a big deal. Again, work one side at a time, because then we're gonna hang this side down. We're gonna pull this spring right out of here. And this bump stop right here, this comes off like that. And then we're gonna be actually flush cutting this cup right off of here. That's part of the install. We actually cut those off because they are no longer needed, and that is where the airbag is gonna sit. It's almost like they knew it needed an airbag. It's already set up for a mount. All right, so that's what I did. I just unbolted the entire sway bar from the axle housing itself. It's just a couple of 15 millimeter through bolts. It comes right out. You can let it hang down. It'll be out of your way now. And now I'm gonna take out this 21 millimeter through bolt, pull that out of the way so we can drop this side of the axle down and pull that spring out. So I'll get that bolt out, then I'll kind of show you how we'll get the spring out. All right, this is worth mentioning. In order to get the lower shock bolt off when the axle is just hanging and you have the coil spring pushing down on it, there's pressure on here, especially when you disconnect the sway bar link, that there's going to be tension on that bolt, and it's going to want to you're going to have a hard time getting it out because this is kind of going to be fighting you. So what you're going to do is you can do this with a jack and a jack stand. You don't need to lift. You can jack off the frame right here and then lower it back down so the jack stand's supported under the axle. So as you lower the truck, the axle goes back up and takes the load off of this shock. You can get that bolt out. Now we're going to lift the lift back up or pump back up in your jack, and that's going to loosen this right up. We might have to pry this side of the axle down a little bit to get it out, but that should come right out. As you can see, we've done nothing with the tools itself, but that spring is all loose now, so I can't do it one-handed. Or maybe I can. Oh, I guess I can. Out comes the rear coil spring. Then we can get in here and cut this cup right off flush, right off from the frame. It's literally just that. It's a cup that's just welded to the frame. So worst case scenario down the road, you could weld this back on, but we're gonna get her cut off with the Sawzall, and then we're gonna grind those down flat, touch up the paint, and continue with the mounting. If you notice, I'm working one side at a time. That allows you to, so the axle is not completely just hanging down there on you, but it also allows you to model one side after the other. So it's just a good habit. Same thing when you're doing brakes. I'm going at it with a reciprocating saw. You can get creative with a grinder. Be careful because the gas tank is on this side here. So I think this is the safest bet to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my thing and get back to you. All right, so they're actually not as bad as you'd think to cut these off because they just weld on the front and the rear. So if you cut just before or after the welds there, you got this baby off and you can pretty much reinstall it and weld it back on down the road if you had to. So we're gonna go ahead and grind flat what's left of this weld, touch up the paint, then we'll get our bracket on there for the airbag. All right, the wording on this in directions is a little wonky, but it's not a big deal once you got it. So you get your upper mount. It's the same thing on both sides. Just to worry about messing that up. There's an 8 millimeter Allen head with a flange nut you're gonna put in the slotted hole. You're then going to hold this up on the frame and you're gonna mark the location of that hole with a marker as well as that hole with a marker. So basically, and that flange nut sits in that hole that you cut the bump stop off from, just like that. So when it's sitting like this, you're gonna go ahead and mark that location because you're gonna be drilling that. And then this other hole, which is right next to that flange nut, because I believe you drill these, don't quote me on the drill size, and then you run a self-tapper or a special threading self-tapper in there from here and there. So I'm gonna get these babies marked and I'll get back to you with the drill size. All right guys, right there, 11/32 drill, and these are the self-tappers. So it helps if you go ahead and dimple the center of your marked locations just so your drill don't wander on you. So I'm gonna go ahead and dimple this one and then the lower one over here. We're gonna get those drilled. These babies put up after I touch up the paint, but I wanted to get my drilling done first. One other important thing to mention, which I should have said before I said drill the holes, always check the inside of your frame or what you're drilling into, make sure you're not hitting a line or wire or anything like that. So please do that as well. The engineering at Rough Country have done a good job researching, so they would put warnings in there and they didn't, but always a good idea to check. I've run these self-tappers in and threaded the holes already, top and bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and hit that with the touch-up paint, then get our plate bolted up, then we'll work on the bottom plate and repeat on the other side. All right, touch-up paint's on, airbag mounts all in. Now we're gonna go ahead and attach the upper airbag bracket. Now remember, the upper part will be rigid mounted. Remember, the lower part can lift off. Goes on like this with two bolts that hold it down. And then your air fitting, and I believe they give you some Teflon tape, is gonna go like this and end up in about that position there, facing the inside of the truck, I believe. And then we'll get into the lower mount. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this on. Then you're gonna go ahead and get this bolted up to the truck and go from there. All right, this is where the process is gonna vary slightly if you went ahead and had these lower, if you went and purchased these lower airbag cushions. If you did not, you're gonna take the lower mount and you're gonna bolt it directly to the airbag itself, and then that gets bolted onto the truck, okay? Now, that can limit your travel. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this lower mount, instead of bolting it to the airbag, we're gonna bolt it to this cushion right here, one through bolt, then this gets bolted to the truck, and then the airbag will just set like that. So that's what we're gonna do, because he wants the full articulation and to be able to, a little more with the off-road capabilities. So bolt this to this and the bracket on the truck. All right, so basically what it's gonna do now is those two holes that are already there from the factory, that's where a couple carriage bolts, let me switch hands here, sorry, are gonna go through with some nuts on the backside. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those babies in, and we'll get these tightened down, and then we can set the airbag in, put the upper bolts in, so then your airbag's mounted to the top and just setting in here. And then we gotta do the other side, which you don't need to see all that, and then we'll run the airlines. All right, we got our mounts all in. We got our airbag here. We're gonna go ahead and set this here. And then we'll have to lift it up to mount it to the carriage bolts get bolted right to there. And as you can see, of course, there's zero air in this airbag. If he was at like full articulation, of course, this is beyond that because he's got the shock beyond its travel here. This would allow it to come out of the cup and then back down in when he comes back down, instead of being limited by the airbag. So I got 4 carriage bolts. They're gonna go up through this way, so you can tighten the nuts on the top here. Ratcheting wrench works slick. And then this side is good to go. We'll do the other side, and then you're on the airlines. All right, it's in, all the bolts are in. I just went ahead and slid the spring back in. We're gonna lower it back down onto that jack stand so we can get our lower shock bolt reattached. Then we're gonna go do the other side. We're gonna leave this sway bar off till the very end and then run the airlines. All right, we got both airbags installed. We're gonna go ahead and swing this sway bar right back up and screw it down with a couple 15s. Then we're gonna run our airlines. One on each bag. Then you're gonna kind of route it up out of the way along the frame. Both sides, you gotta be careful for the exhaust on this side. And then we're gonna come out, and I believe it's gonna have us come out right through the license plate screws themselves. All right, onto the airline. It's pretty basic on this truck. There's no auxiliary controller. He's got no pump, so it's manual valves. We're gonna go ahead and replace the upper license plate fastening screws with these. These will take place of those, so it'll be nice and hidden. Actually, I like that look. And all the connections for your airline are just push locks. You cut them to length, you route them, you use zip ties, and you just push them in the fittings. One here, one on the airbag. So one fitting controls the right, one fitting controls the left. Pretty basic as far as that goes. So you want to make sure when you cut your airline, use a good sharp tool or razor blade so you get a nice square cut when you push those fittings in. So I'm going to get these babies installed and then run our airline. I'll kind of show you how I ran them. All right, we got our adjustment fittings all in place in the upper license plate mounting holes. You still have the lower ones there, and the plate goes right on that. And one thing worth mentioning is you do have to drill these out because there's a little plastic nub behind there in order to get these in here, if that's where you want to put them. If you didn't, you want to go through the bumper or someplace else, that's fine too. All right, remember how I said get something sharp to cut the airline with? Or you could just use the handy dandy tool that Rough Country sent with the kit. So you just, bear with me here. You do this with one hand, flip it in here, and just, I think, squeeze it. Oh yeah, that works slick. Let me finish routing this one. This one is all routed. As you can see there, got it up on the frame, beside the spare tire, and around loop, nice, no kinks, into the back of the license plate. The other one, same thing, comes out, goes around, up high, around the spare tire on this side of the heat shield, away from the exhaust, over the axle, come up around here, it's gonna loop to the front and then back in. And the reason for that is the only way to keep it up and out of the way of the exhaust, because that fitting comes out this way or that way. That should work just fine. So I'm gonna trim this up, get it in. All right, so that's basically the whole install of the airbags. Now we're ready to put the wheels and tires back on this thing. Yeah, I'm having a snack. And you can run a range of 5 pounds minimum at all times. You gotta have 5 pounds in these airbags, all the way up to 100 pounds. I couldn't find that in directions. I actually had to call Rough Country to verify that. So basically 5 pounds to 100 pounds is your pressure range. So the last thing we're gonna do after you put the wheels and tires on, we're gonna put, I don't know, 20, 30 pounds in these bags. And then we're gonna spray all our connections down with some soapy water. It's something you definitely wanna do with the weight of the vehicle sitting on it to make sure you don't have any leaks. Then you consider it done. All right, I'm gonna put some air in these fittings. See if we can't get some up action on the truck when I'm doing this. Possibly, I'm not sure. So let's go ahead and throw a little pressure at it. Oh yeah. Oh, that's 45 pounds. That went up fast. Jeez, that is freaking rad. Holy mackerel. Check that out. She's got some rake into her now. It's amazing how much these things will do. Airbags, it really is. And you don't lose your ride. That's the best part. So I'm gonna go ahead and get under there with some soapy water, spray all our fittings, make sure we don't have any leaks, and these are done. All right, verified with our Lambo Lethal glass cleaner, soapy water. There are no leaks on this thing. We got it aired up to about 40 pounds-ish. Like I said, you can go up to 100. We got a decent rake to it now. I'll get you a better view when we get outside. That'll bring us to the end of the airbag portion of this video. So I appreciate y'all watching. If you want to hang out some more, we're going to get into the auxiliary lights. We'll start with the front light bar first. All right, we're going to get into the light bar now. And this is a Nightlight light bar the customer bought. Something that he wanted, so we're gonna go ahead and get it mounted for him. It's a 20-incher, and this is gonna be wired, so it's an application, typically anyway. So this will be not a key on power. This light will be, drop it on the floor. This light will be powered at all times. So in other words, even if the truck is not running, he can go ahead and turn this light on. So he had to get out of the truck, truck's not running, he's at the campsite or wherever he is, he can still turn that light on. So this is a direct route to battery type wiring situation. And as far as the location goes, I believe, I'm gonna try anyway. We're gonna get it mounted up into here someplace, and that actually looks pretty slick. I like that look. So we'll see what we can do to get it mounted up onto the grill and or bumper and go from there. I just kind of show you their wiring they have there is basically there's your 2 battery connections. There's the connections on the back of the rocker switch that comes with it, their relay, and then out to the light or lights right there. So it's a complete wiring harness right here. The only thing I'm not a fan of is their light switch itself. It's big, it's clunky. I don't care for that. I like the Rough Country style a lot better. And you have to like cut a huge hole to get this thing to mount. So we may not mount it or be cutting a hole in the customer's dash because he may be switching to like a multi-switch setup. So we may use a sticky tape situation and get this thing up and out of the way, at least temporarily, until he decides to upgrade on the switches, because I'm not a fan of that switch. But I'm gonna go ahead and put the brackets on so we can kind of locate it onto the bumper and get a better idea. All right, we pretty much got our mounting location figured out, and basically gonna drill a couple of holes right here because the light is gonna sit right there. So kind of like tucked in that. I'm just kind of halfway holding on there, but I went ahead and verified there's nothing on the other side of the bumper. I'm not drilling into any airbag sensors or anything like that. So we can get the airbag, the light bar mounted right here. And then we're gonna figure out our wire routing. It's probably gonna go in on this side of the truck, being the driver's side, and the batteries over here and everything. And then we gotta get it routed up underneath. We'll probably put it back up on the lift, it'll be easier for that. But in the meantime, I'll get this thing bolted on. Maybe just because it's the V6, but there is a ton of room back here to get at the fasteners and everything for mounting the light, which is nice. It's gonna make routing and everything. Jeez, you can put a whole other engine in front of this thing. So let me get that mounted. All right, just like before, we touch up paint on any holes that we drill in this thing to prevent further, or any corrosion, I should say. All right, I got our fasteners temporarily just kind of snugged in there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and position them into the holes. take it back out, and then tighten these ones down all the way before I tighten it down onto the bumper. Because it's pretty hard to get to afterwards, and it's going to be pretty tight. So I'll go ahead and get that in, then we can get it up in the air and tighten this down on the bumper. All right, as far as wire routing goes, obviously we got to make our battery connections. I believe we're going to go right through this blank right here. And basically, I think that's for like a clutch setup if this thing was a manual, possibly. Because inside there's a hole here that has access to this as well. So I think we're going to put a hole through this here and run the wires right through there. Be nice and clean right next to the main harness right there. And we'll put a grommet and seal that up as well. All right, so we put a little pilot hole right there from the inside to verify that's where we were at. And I'll go under the dash here and I'll kind of show you where you're going to come through with the wires. It's actually pretty clean up here. See that? Right there. We're going to drill that out a little bigger, put a grommet in there, seal it up, and run our wires into here. And then, like I said, that's for the switch. As far as the switch mounting goes, I'm not sure yet because I don't think he's going to want to cut a big hole in his dash anyways for that thing. So we'll see. All right, we got our grommet in there. Just big enough to run those plugs through there, and then a little extra room around the wire because we actually got another switch because this thing's getting reverse lights in the rear of the truck as well. So we'll go through that same hole with those. As far as the wiring goes, the relay, it's all plug and play. It's all sealed up. That goes to your 2 battery, your positive and your negative. The other plug right there goes to your switch we just ran inside the cab, so they'll just plug on the other side of that. And then the other wire that's left goes all the way to the light bar on the front of the truck. And that's basically it. So we're gonna route these in, probably someplace along this fender right here so we can get these wires attached to the battery. And that'll be the install of the light once we figure out the switch mounting. All right, up under the truck, we came through the left fender, the driver's side fender, around the front of the radiator shroud, down loop through here, behind this bracket, and then we tied it into our light bar right here. I'm gonna neatly tuck this stuff up here after I tape off those connections just to keep them weather tight, and then put a zip tie up there, and that's where the wiring will be hidden. That looks pretty slick. I can't wait to see it on. That's gonna be a big lighting improvement. It looks nice on the front of that Dodge. I actually like this grill setup altogether. Customer also bought a couple of pod lights that he wants on a switch in the rear. We're also gonna run that through the same grommet. So I'm not gonna completely groom this out or tie the front light into the battery until I run the switch and the wiring down the truck to the back of the truck. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that switch in here and get the wiring heading towards the back of the truck so we can make the final connection all at once. No, it's not fun trying to sneak wires down where you can't even see. Oh man, this is not fun, dude. Wish there was an easy button. There's not. All right, we got the rear auxiliary lights run down the fender, and they're gonna follow the factory wiring harness along the frame. We'll tie it off to that, tucked nice and neatly. Clearly, it's not long enough. So we're gonna be cutting it back here and heat shrinking and splicing in a long section to get this section in the back of the truck where the light's gonna go. So we're off about, I don't know, 15 feet worth of wire. All right, doing a little trick with the wiring. I was taught a long time ago. I mean, I wouldn't go too tight because there's people that say you're gonna break the internal wires. This is not cheap wiring, so I'm not worried about that. And or I've never had a problem. So basically what you do is you chuck it up in your drill, and then you pull the trigger, like so. Of course, it would have helped if I made the wires the same length. But in a nutshell, you end up with a nice braided wire, nothing too tight, that runs down the length of the truck so it doesn't look, you know, all gross and just kind of in there. But that's about it. Pretty simple. It works. I do it. I like it. That's all I'm gonna say. If you haven't used these connectors before, they have solder built right in. You slide the wires in and you heat it up with a little torch, and then you basically have a completely sealed soldered connection, and you slide your heat shrink down over the top of that, seal that off, and you've got a nice watertight connection. All right, back under the truck. Now we got our whole twisted wire pair, all heat shrinked at the 2 connections where we met the factory harness itself, and then we made the extension and we put it in some wire loom. Now I just got to finish routing it to the back, tie it up all out of the way, and we'll mount our lights. Guys, the key to running this wiring is to stay away from the exhaust, stay away from pinch points, and any other I guess, situation or problematic area you think that could arise from running wires. So I just wanted to mention that. I want you to be aware of that. And you want it to look good, obviously. We don't want it to be all haphazard and not look good. So, like I said, I will tie this off as I go with some zip ties, and we'll cut them off. And then when we get to the back of the truck, we were gonna tie the other end of the factory harness back into this one, so he'll be good to go again. All right, we made it to the back of the truck with the wire in. My God, that is a long freaking run. The customer originally bought this to mount the lights on so that clamps to the head of your receiver. However, he doesn't have the clearance to use this on his factory bumper, and he's got the sway control and all that other stuff on there. So that's not gonna really work in this application. So what we're gonna do, and I talked to him, at our discretion, we're gonna mount him to the bumper right here. Just out of the way of the safety chains, but just through the bumper right here at an angle. I think that'll look pretty good as well. I'm not a huge fan of the looks of these anyway, but it'll be tucked away, it'll look good and not be too obtrusive, unless I find a better location. But I think that's gonna work pretty slick. All right, guys, I got both of the they're not backup lights, they're auxiliary lights, mounted loosely because I'm gonna adjust them a little bit and then tighten them down. I'm gonna tie the wires together and then to the main run, and the wiring for this is done. And then we're gonna figure out the switches. And I did talk to the owner. I think we're gonna make a temporary small little tab plate to mount the two switches in, and therefore he can get his auxiliary switch block that he wants to get later. And then I got to put some headlight bulbs in this thing, and unfortunately to get to these you got to take the whole grill out and the headlights. All right, so I got a piece of scrap aluminum sheet here. It's basically we're gonna bend the bracket and let it hang down a little bit, so right in here, so it's not in the way of his foot, but allows him to get to these switches, which will be right about here, until he figures out what he wants for like a more permanent auxiliary switches. I think he's gonna be adding more lights and stuff as we go to this truck. This isn't a bad location either, and I can mention that to him for the future. I just don't want to go ahead and start cutting up his truck if he's gonna change those switches out. Huh? It's getting there. A little more shaping to do and we'll have it. All right, I think we got it close now. I don't want to push these in until I go ahead and clean this up and paint it. But I just got to sand the edges, and I'm pretty sure we got a nice little light bracket, a light switch bracket that I think he's gonna like, temporary or not. It looks way better than just zip tying or having them hanging there. So we'll clean this up and maybe even throw it in the powder coat oven. All right, so I powder coated the bracket, no extra charge. It just was the easier thing to do. I didn't have to worry about waiting for paint to dry. So that's in the oven curing. I'm gonna groom out these wires so I can get the headlight bulbs in. Just like that, we got ourselves a powder coated switch bracket that we made for this truck, completely custom. And I'm just gonna pop the switches in, we're good to go. All right, that didn't come out too bad. I'm pretty happy with that overall. So we went ahead and got our switches mounted right in there. I'm gonna get this screwed back up on the dash and get our wires on there and call this thing done. Light bars in, wiring's all groomed out. I got his fuses all located right here. We entered the firewall there. The rear lights are all mounted. The switch bracket that we made is all mounted. It actually looks pretty good considering we didn't know what we were gonna do with it, but all in all, they work. And they're both on switches and they came out nice. Let me take you out back and show you the lights. He's gonna be able to see all right now. That looks pretty sweet. Then I'm always a fan of these light bars because they're freaking bright. They are bright. Then of course we did the airbags in the rear as well and brought the rake of this truck back up so we can get his camping gear and get out there to more places now. So this is freaking rad. As always, guys, thanks for hanging out with us and getting this classic Dodge Ram to the next level by installing the rough country airbags. We did some auxiliary switch lights for the rear, some for the front, some upgraded headlights. It was a good time. It was a lot of work. It actually took the entire day, but it's a cool project. And you gotta love the classic Rams. Who doesn't love that body style? Personally, the second gen is my favorite, but this classic style is pretty sweet. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching Scout Flippin' Customized.